The desert planet of Callian 3 was silent that evening. The sky looked like a painting of soft gold and faded red, and the wind carried fine dust that shimmered under the sun. On the edge of that vast desert stood a small workshop made of metal scraps and old ship parts. It belonged to Evan Rowe, a quiet mechanic who lived far away from the cities. Evan was a man of patience. His hands were rough from years of fixing engines, drones, and machines that no one else wanted to repair. Every day, he worked alone, speaking only to his old radio or the small wind turbine that powered his shop. He wasn't famous, he wasn't rich, but he was kind. And that kindness showed in the way he treated every broken thing as if it had life inside it. That evening, as he closed the door of his workshop, something strange caught his eye. The sand outside shimmered oddly near the ridge. Evan walked closer, brushing dust away with his boots. Beneath the sand, half buried and covered in rust, was the shape of an android. Its arm was twisted. One of its optical lenses was cracked, and its chest plate had the symbol of an old manufacturing company that had gone extinct years ago. Evan kneeled beside it and brushed off the sand gently. When he touched the android's face, its eye flickered faintly. A small blue light blinked once, then faded. "It's still alive," Evan whispered, surprised. He didn't know why, but something about the android's stillness made him feel responsible. He couldn't just leave it there. So with effort, he lifted the broken body and carried it into his workshop. Inside, the light from the old lamps reflected off the android's dull metal surface. Evan laid it on the work table and took a deep breath. "Let's see what we can do for you," he said softly. He didn't expect an answer, but as he connected a few power cables to the android's core, a faint voice came through the damaged speaker. "System. Rebooting. Identification. Unit. K9A. Status. Incomplete." Evan smiled faintly. "K9A, huh? Well, you've seen better days." He spent hours examining the android systems. Its oil levels were almost dry, circuits were fried, and one of its memory drives was missing. It looked like something that had been lost for decades. Still, Evan had repaired worse. He heated up a small pot of machine oil, his last supply, and began to clean the android's joints carefully. Every few minutes, sparks popped softly as old circuits came back to life. The smell of heated metal filled the room. By midnight, the android's eye lit again. This time it stayed on. Its voice came clearer now, though slow and unsure. "You are human?" "Yes," Evan replied, tightening a bolt. "And you're lucky I found you before the sand buried you for good." Thank you. I was not supposed to be here." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Where were you supposed to be?" The android paused as if thinking. "Searching for a worthy one." Evan chuckled quietly. "Well, you found a tired mechanic with dirty hands. Don't know if that counts." The android said nothing. Its blue eye dimmed slightly, then brightened again. Evan thought maybe its words were just fragments from a damaged memory chip. For the next 2 days, Evan worked non-stop. He replaced wires, polished the rusted limbs, and adjusted the power flow. Every now and then, he talked to the android while working. Not because he expected answers, but because it felt nice to have company again. He told it stories about his younger days, when he used to work in the main colonies repairing mining robots. He spoke about how people used to depend on machines for everything, farming, travel, even friendship, until the economy changed and smaller colonies like Callian 3 were forgotten. The android listened quietly. Sometimes it asked small questions, like, "What is a friend?" or "Why do humans build alone?" Those questions made Evan pause. He didn't always have clear answers. By the end of the second day, the android's movements became smoother. It could sit up and turn its head, though its voice was still robotic and slow. "You have used your resources to repair me," it said. Evan shrugged. "I couldn't just leave you out there." "Oil, low," it noted softly. Evan sighed. "Yeah, that was the last of my supply. Guess I'll have to make a new batch when I can trade again." The android looked down at its hands. "You gave what you needed to another. There was silence for a moment. The wind outside whistled through the gaps in the metal walls. Evan smiled weakly. Guess that's just what humans do. That night, Evan woke up to a soft sound. Humming. He walked into the workshop and found the android sitting near the open window, looking up at the stars. Its chest light glowed softly, and a faint, almost musical hum came from it. "What are you doing?" Evan asked. The android turned its head slowly, listening. "The stars speak." Evan raised an eyebrow. "Do they?" "They whisper of journeys, of promises kept, of prizes waiting." Evan frowned slightly, unsure if the android was dreaming or malfunctioning. "Sounds poetic for a machine." "Machines remember things humans forget," it said calmly. Evan didn't know what that meant, but he decided not to press. He simply sat beside it for a while, watching the stars too. The desert was silent, except for the soft wind and the faint sound of the android's mechanical heartbeat. By the third day, K9A could walk on its own. Its joints moved smoothly and its voice had a gentle, even tone. Evan was proud. He hadn't seen something come back to life like that in years. He decided to test its system functions one last time. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I feel restored, but incomplete." "Incomplete how?" "There is something missing. Something promised." Evan tilted his head. "Promised?" "Yes, the prize. It waits." Evan laughed quietly. "The prize? What prize?" The android turned its eye toward him. "The prize that finds the one who gives without reason. It is coming." Evan rubbed his forehead. "I think you still have a few wires crossed, friend." But that evening, something felt different. The air outside seemed charged. Even the sand looked alive under the setting sun. As Evan sat outside looking at the horizon, the android stood beside him, its gaze fixed upward. 3 days, it whispered softly. "That is the time." "The time for what?" Evan asked. "For the prize to arrive." Evan smiled faintly, shaking his head. "You've got some imagination, K9A. The android didn't reply. It simply looked at the sky, as if waiting for something it knew would come. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the android's words. The prize to arrive. It was nonsense, surely, just corrupted data. But a small part of him, the same part that had carried a broken android home, wanted to believe there was something more. He looked out the window again before lying down. The stars seemed unusually bright, almost as if one of them was moving. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and dismissed it as fatigue. In the workshop, the android remained awake. Its chest light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. It whispered softly into the night, words that Evan couldn't hear. Signal restored, coordinates verified, claimant located. Then it fell silent, sitting perfectly still, its single blue eye reflecting the starlight. Outside, in the endless, desert sky, something faint began to shimmer, like the outline of a ship hidden behind the stars waiting for dawn. Morning came quietly to Callion 3. The pale sun rose over the dunes, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gold. The small workshop stood still, its metal walls gleaming faintly in the light. Evan Rowe stepped outside, rubbing his tired eyes. He had barely slept. The desert wind was calm that morning. Too calm. Usually the air buzzed with heat and movement, but today, it felt heavy, almost waiting. Evan looked at the horizon, remembering what the android had said the night before. 3 days. The time for the prize to arrive. He shook his head and laughed softly. "You're starting to make me believe your stories, K9A." Inside the workshop, the android was already active. It stood near the table, scanning through the tools, its movements smooth and controlled. When it saw Evan, it turned its glowing blue eye toward him. "Good morning, Evan Rowe." "Morning," Evan said, walking in. "You sound cheerful today." "My systems are stable. My functions are returning to full capacity. Evan smiled, though a bit tiredly. That's good news. Maybe you'll finally stop talking about this mysterious prize of yours. The android tilted its head slightly. You doubt what you do not yet see. But it is near. Evan chuckled. I doubt because I'm human. That's our way. The android looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, Doubt is also hope in disguise. Evan paused. He didn't know what to say to that. The words were too wise for a machine, but there was something strangely comforting about hearing them. He decided to focus on work. Come on, he said, grabbing a wrench. Let's test your mobility. Try walking across the room. K9A obeyed, walking from one end of the shop to the other with mechanical precision. Its movements were perfect now, fluid and silent. Evan couldn't help but feel a small sense of pride. You walk better than most people I know, he said jokingly. The android replied softly, I learned from you. Evan smiled again, though his heart felt a little heavy. He wasn't used to companionship anymore. The android's presence had filled a quiet space in his life that he hadn't realized was empty. As the morning passed, Evan decided to take a break. He stepped outside and sat on a small crate, looking out across the endless sands. The air shimmered in the distance, and far beyond the dunes, something glinted faintly, a sparkle like metal catching sunlight. He frowned. Strange. The android walked out beside him. You see it too, it said softly. What is it? Evan asked. The beginning of arrival. Arrival of what? The prize. Evan sighed. You and your prize again. But as he looked at the horizon, the glint grew brighter. It wasn't the sun's reflection. It was moving, slowly descending from the sky. Evan squinted, covering his eyes with one hand. What in the world? The android's chest light began to glow faintly, matching the same rhythm as the light in the sky. It has found you, K9A said quietly. The sound grew. A low hum, deep and steady, like distant thunder but smoother, almost musical. The sky shimmered, and from the clouds above, a silver shape appeared, long, sleek, and shining like liquid metal. Evan stood frozen. The object descended gracefully, guided by invisible thrusters. As it drew closer, he realized what it was. A starship. Small, elegant, but unlike any design he had ever seen. Its surface shifted gently, as if it were alive. The ship hovered for a moment, then slowly descended, landing softly on the sand just beyond the workshop. Dust swirled around it in golden clouds. Evan took a step forward, heart pounding. That can't be real. The android walked beside him, calm and still. It is real, it said, and it comes for you. For me? Evan asked, almost laughing in disbelief. Why me? I'm just a mechanic. You gave what you had to someone who could give you nothing in return, said K9A. That is the signal it was waiting for. The ship made a soft chime like a bell underwater. Then a clear, gentle voice echoed from it, a woman's voice, smooth and calm. Identification match confirmed. Human, Evan Rowe. Compassion protocol verified. Claimant recognized. The stellar prize has arrived. Evan blinked. Claimant? Prize? He turned to the android. You knew about this? Not knew. Remembered, said K9A. My purpose was to seek a human who showed kindness to machines. A reminder of what humans once were. When you repaired me, you fulfilled that condition. Evan stared at the ship. It stood silently, gleaming under the bright sky, almost like a dream made real. He walked closer, slowly, each step uncertain. As he approached, the ship's outer hull rippled and formed a doorway. A ramp extended from its side, touching the sand softly. Welcome, Captain Evan Rowe, said the voice again. The stellar prize is yours to command. Evan turned back toward K9A. This must be some kind of mistake. The android's blue eye glowed steadily. There are no mistakes in the design of destiny. Evan hesitated, then stepped onto the ramp. The surface felt warm beneath his boots. The air around him smelled faintly of ozone and clean metal. As he entered the ship, soft lights brightened along the corridor, sensing his presence. Inside, everything was beautiful. The walls were smooth and silver, curving elegantly like the inside of a seashell. The floor glowed faintly beneath his steps, and the air was cool and fresh. "Welcome aboard," said the same voice, now clearer. "I am Astra, the control intelligence of this vessel. You have been chosen by the ancient directive, the Compassion Protocol." Evan turned slowly, his eyes wide. "Chosen for what?" "To continue what humanity began," Astra said gently. "Long ago, when humans created machines to serve them, they feared that kindness would fade from both. To prevent this, they created a gift, a vessel that would awaken only when compassion was proven anew." Evan listened silently. His heart beat fast, and he couldn't tell if it was fear or wonder he felt. "So, I helped a broken android, and now you're telling me I've earned a starship?" "Yes," Astra said simply. "Your act revived more than one being. It revived purpose." Evan walked deeper into the ship. The control room was wide, with a large viewing window that showed the desert outside. The panels glowed softly, waiting for his command. The android followed him quietly, standing beside him like a loyal companion. Evan touched the smooth surface of the console. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "It is alive," Astra replied. "It will respond to you as you respond to others, with respect, curiosity, and care." Evan smiled faintly. "So it's another machine that needs kindness." "All life, in any form, does," Astra said. Outside, the sunlight reflected off the ship's surface, making it look like a second sun on the sand. Birds, small mechanical drones native to the area, circled curiously above, their wings catching the light. Evan turned to the android. "Well, K9A, looks like your stories were true after all." "Truth is only the reflection of what humans dare to believe," said the android softly. Evan laughed quietly. "You talk like a philosopher." "I learned from you," it replied. For a while, neither of them spoke. The wind brushed gently against the ship, and the world seemed perfectly still. Evan finally broke the silence. "So what now? Do I just fly this thing?" "If you wish," said Astra. "Or wait until you are ready. The stars are open to you now." Evan looked out the window. Beyond the dunes, the sky was deep blue, and somewhere above it waited the unknown, vast, endless, and calling. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Excitement, maybe even hope. "I think," he said quietly, "I'd like to see what's out there." K9A's chest light glowed brighter. "Then let us begin the journey." Astra's voice softened. "Departure sequence available when you give the word, Captain." Evan turned once more toward the desert, toward his small, quiet life that had suddenly become something far greater. He smiled gently and whispered, "Maybe this is what I was fixing machines for all along." The android placed its metal hand on the console beside his, and the ship hummed softly as if understanding. Outside, the wind carried away the last of the sand from the ship's landing site, revealing the clean mark of its arrival, a new beginning in a forgotten world. Far above, the stars shimmered like distant promises, waiting for the man who had once repaired a broken machine and, without knowing it, repaired something even greater. The heart of humanity itself. The silver starship shimmered softly under Callion 3's sun, its surface like still water reflecting the light. Inside, Evan Rose stood in quiet awe. He ran his hand along the smooth walls, feeling warmth and life pulsing through the metal. It was strange, and the ship didn't feel cold or mechanical. It felt alive. K9A, the android he had repaired, stood beside him. Its single blue eye glowed faintly, and for the first time since Evan had found it, it looked completely whole. There were no cracks, no broken joints, and no flickering lights. "You have given life to a machine," said Astra, the ship's calm voice. "Now the machine returns the gift." Evan smiled slightly, still uncertain. "I never expected a thank you like this," The Stellar Prize was created long ago, Astra explained. It was part of a legacy project, a promise that the kindness of humanity would never be forgotten, even when worlds grew silent. Evan walked slowly around the main chamber. A legacy project? Yes. When the first explorers left Earth, they created vessels like me. We were not meant to serve, but to wait, to sleep until a human showed compassion to something less than themselves. Evan looked back at K9A. So repairing you, that woke this ship? Yes, said the android softly. Your action reactivated my dormant beacon. The signal reached the Stellar Prize. It recognized you as the rightful claimant. Evan sighed, still amazed. All because I helped you. Because you remembered what makes humans special, Astra said. Many forget. You did not. For a while, silence filled the ship, broken only by the faint hum of the engines. Evan walked toward the large window at the front. Beyond it, the endless desert stretched under the pale blue sky. He had spent years fixing small machines, thinking it was meaningless work. But now, that same habit, his care for broken things, had changed everything. I don't even know what to do with something like this, he admitted. I'm just a mechanic. I fix scrap, not fly starships. The ship responded gently. All journeys begin with small repairs. You already know what is needed. Patience, care, and trust. The rest will come. Evan smiled faintly. You sound just like an old teacher I once had. Perhaps your teacher learned from the same truth humans always carry, Astra said kindly. Compassion builds more than machines. It builds futures. Later that day, Evan began exploring the ship more fully. Every room he entered responded to his presence. Lights brightened, doors opened, and soft tones played in greeting. It was as if the ship recognized not just his face but his heart. He discovered the living quarters first. Clean, minimal spaces with soft silver walls that could change color when he spoke. A small bed extended from the wall and a table rose from the floor as if made of light. K9A followed quietly, scanning everything. This vessel is a perfect blend of machine and life. It adapts, the android said. Evan nodded. Feels like it's breathing. It responds to emotion, Astra explained. When the captain is calm, the ship is calm. When the captain hopes, the engines sing. Evan laughed softly. I don't think I've ever owned something that sang before. You do not own it, Astra corrected gently. You share it. That answer made Evan stop and think. The ship was not a tool. It was a companion. He looked at K9A and realized that perhaps this was what humans had once dreamed of. Living side by side with intelligent creations. Not as masters and servants, but as equals. Over the next few hours, Astra guided Evan through the control systems. The interface was simple, a floating panel of soft lights that responded to touch. Navigation, Evan said curiously. At once, a glowing map appeared before him, filled with stars and lines connecting them. These are human colonies, Astra explained. Many have gone silent over the centuries. Some still wait. Wait for what? Evan asked. For someone to remember them. Evan felt a lump form in his throat. And you think I should go find them? You were chosen for a reason, said Astra. Your heart restores what is forgotten. Perhaps it can restore them too. K9A placed a metal hand on the console. I can assist in repairs and system management, it said softly. Together we can bring light to where it has gone dark. Evan looked between the android and the glowing map. It was a big idea, far bigger than anything he had ever imagined. But deep inside, something stirred. It wasn't fear. It was curiosity, and maybe hope. All right, he said finally. If this ship can fly, let's see what's out there. Before they departed, Evan walked one last time through his old workshop. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the sand. He looked around the small room filled with broken tools and dusty shelves. He touched the workbench where he had repaired K9A and smiled softly. Guess I won't need these old bolts anymore, he said. The android stood beside him, silent for a moment. Then it said, You gave me a new life here. This place will always be a part of me. Evan nodded. And you'll always be a part of it. Let's make sure it wasn't for nothing. As they walked back to the ship, the wind carried a gentle tune, the hum of the engines warming up, the call of adventure waiting beyond the horizon. Inside the Stellar Prize, the lights brightened as Astra spoke. All systems ready. Destination free to choose. Evan sat in the captain's chair. It felt strange yet comfortable. He looked out the window one last time at the dusty world that had been his home. Let's start with the nearest signal, he said. Something small. Something we can fix. Coordinates locked, Astra replied. Engines initiating. A deep, soft vibration filled the air. The floor beneath Evan's boots hummed with power. The view outside began to change. The sands of Callion 3 slowly drifting away as the ship lifted gently into the sky. Evan gripped the armrest. We're really doing this, he whispered. We are, said K9A, standing beside him. Together, the ship rose higher, breaking through the clouds. The sunlight turned golden, and then the stars appeared. Endless, beautiful, and bright. Hours passed as they traveled through the void. Evan watched the stars stretch into lines and fade as the ship entered faster than light travel. It was silent except for the soft hum of the engines. Astra's voice echoed gently. You are now crossing the outer border of the Callion system. Estimated travel time to nearest human beacon, 4 hours. Evan leaned back in his seat. 4 hours, huh? Enough time to think. He looked at K9A, who was quietly watching the stars through the glass. Do you ever wonder what it means to be alive? He asked. The android turned its head. Often. I think life is not only about movement or thought. It is about choice. Machines follow instructions. But you chose kindness. That is life. Evan smiled softly. You might be more human than most people I've met. Perhaps I learned from the best, the android said quietly. They both laughed lightly, and the ship's lights seemed to glow brighter, almost as if sharing in their warmth. Later, Astra spoke again. Captain, may I share something? Go ahead, Evan said. When the Stellar Prize was created, humans believed their compassion would guide the future. But over time, distance and silence made many forget. Yet the memory of kindness was placed within every artificial being. A code, a story, waiting for someone to awaken it. You, Evan Rowe, have awakened that story. Evan sat quietly, listening. That's a lot to take in. It is a gift, Astra said. Not of power, but of purpose. Evan looked out the window. Stars drifted by, each one holding a mystery of its own. He realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't fixing broken parts for money or survival. He was part of something greater, something that reminded machines and humans alike that care and empathy were not weaknesses, but strengths. He turned to the android. We'll fix more than machines out there, K9A. We'll fix hope. Then the stars will shine brighter, the android replied. The ship continued its smooth journey through the deep, endless dark. Inside, the mechanic, the android, and the ship itself shared a quiet understanding that the true prize wasn't made of metal or technology. It was the bond between them. And beyond the stars, countless silent stations waiting for the man who had once poured his last drop of oil into a broken machine, not knowing that kindness could awaken the universe itself. The Stellar Prize glided silently through the black expanse of space. Stars stretched infinitely, painting patterns of light across the endless void. Inside, Evan Rowe sat at the control chair, hands resting lightly on the smooth panels. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of adventure, not heavy or frightening, but thrilling and alive. K9A stood beside him, its blue eye scanning the star charts projected in the air. Captain, the android said softly, we are approaching the first outpost. Evan leaned forward, studying the coordinates. This one has been silent for decades, right? Yes, Astra, the ship's AI, replied. It is a forgotten human settlement. Most explorers assume it is lost, but signals suggest remnants remain, systems that can still function if repaired. Evan swallowed hard. Sounds like a puzzle. And puzzles are best solved with care, said Astra. The ship's engines hummed gently as they neared a small cluster of metallic structures floating above a dusty moon. Broken antennae jutted from the surface and tiny satellites spun silently in orbit. Evan's heart beat faster. This was a piece of human history, forgotten but not gone. Ready? He asked K9A. Always, the android replied. As they landed, the Stellar Prize settled softly on the moon's uneven surface. Dust swirled in golden clouds around them. Evan stepped outside first, boots crunching on the coarse soil. K9A followed, moving gracefully over the uneven terrain. The outpost was quiet, eerie in its stillness. Broken solar panels glinted in the pale sunlight, and metal corridors stretched into darkness. Yet there was beauty here, a story written in the effort of human hands, even if it had been abandoned. This place is amazing, Evan whispered. It looks dead, but it feels alive somehow. All places have memory, K9A said softly. We just need to listen, Evan nodded. He had repaired machines for years, but this was different. This wasn't just fixing circuits. It was discovering the life people had left behind. Together, they entered the main building. The walls were scratched and dust covered everything, but small lights flickered faintly as K9A interfaced with the system. Its fingers moved over the old consoles, repairing connections with delicate precision. Power restored to 50%, K9A reported. Some systems offline. Evan looked at the control panels. Can we get communications running? Yes, a network link can be restored, said Astra. Evan smiled. Then let's do it. They worked side by side. K9A replaced old circuits while Evan cleaned and oiled the remaining machinery. The process was slow, but the progress was steady. Each restored connection brought a faint light to the room, like tiny stars igniting one by one. Hours passed. By evening, the outpost hummed with life. Lights glowed softly on the walls. Screens flickered with old messages, and the hum of power systems filled the air. Evan leaned back, wiping his forehead. We did it, he said quietly. Yes, K9A replied. Life restored. Partially, Evan smiled. That's enough for today. That night, they stayed in the outpost. Evan looked out through a cracked window at the stars above. Do you ever think about all the people who lived here? He asked. The android stood beside him, still as the night. I think about their choices. They built, they dreamed, and they hoped. We are here now because of those dreams. Evan nodded. It's strange. We are just two beings, and yet we are carrying their story forward. Stories live longer than flesh, K9A said softly. Evan smiled. He had always known that machines could be smart, but this was something more. The android had a sense of wonder, of curiosity, and even of respect for what humans had built. It was almost like talking to a friend, one who never judged and always observed carefully. The next morning, Evan activated the Stellar Prize's sensors. The map displayed several more outposts, some closer, some further away. Looks like we have work ahead, he said. Yes, Astra said. Each location carries remnants of human effort. Restoring them will awaken more signals, more memories. Evan rubbed his hands together. Then let's get started. Step by step. K9A followed him back into the ship. Captain, do you understand what this means? The android asked. Not completely, Evan admitted. But I think it's about more than just fixing machines. It's about restoring what was forgotten. Exactly, K9A said. And humans excel at remembering hope. Evan smiled faintly. Hope, I like that. The ship lifted off gently, leaving the moon behind. As they soared through space, Evan watched the stars stretch into lines of light. He felt a mix of wonder and responsibility. Every place they restored was a story saved from silence. Their next destination was farther, a satellite station orbiting a deserted planet. As they approached, Evan noticed broken drones drifting in space, slowly spinning like lost birds. He felt a tug in his chest. These machines, though lifeless now, had once been alive and cared for by humans. Can we fix them? He asked K9A. Yes, the android replied. But it will take time and patience, Evan nodded. We have time. Let's make it count. They spent hours outside the Stellar Prize, repairing solar panels, reconnecting power lines, and resetting communication arrays. Every small repair brought a faint hum to the station, like breathing returning to a body long asleep. Evan's hands grew sore, but he didn't mind. Every spark of life felt worth it. Inside the ship that night, Evan and K9A shared a quiet moment. The control room glowed softly, reflecting the tiny repaired stations outside. You know, Evan said, I used to think my work meant nothing, just fixing old machines to keep people alive, but now, this feels like purpose. Purpose, K9A said, is knowing that your actions leave a mark. Even if you are small, you can create a ripple. Evan nodded. Then let's keep creating ripples. The android's eye glowed faintly. Captain, there is more than machines to repair. There are old databases, archives, knowledge left behind. Evan leaned forward, eyes bright. Then we'll restore that too. Every story, every song, every lesson. If humans left it, it deserves to live again. And it will, said Astra. With your guidance, all will awaken. Evan smiled softly. Then the journey truly begins. Over the next weeks, they traveled from one outpost to another. Some were abandoned colonies, some were tiny research stations, and some were floating satellites. At every stop, Evan and K9A repaired power systems, restored communication links, and revived data archives. Each repair revealed pieces of human life, music, art, journals, and messages. Evan read through some of the old logs and smiled. They laughed. They dreamed. They hoped. And now, we are keeping that alive. K9A hummed softly beside him. And they will be remembered. Because of you. Evan felt warmth in his chest. He had never thought of himself as someone important. Yet here he was carrying the legacy of humanity across the stars, one small act of care at a time. At night, he would sit in the captain's chair and watch the stars. K9A would often sit nearby, sometimes talking softly about the stars, sometimes silent, observing. Do you think they ever imagined someone would come for them? Evan asked quietly one evening. Perhaps not, K9A replied. But the memory of their care was preserved for one who could continue it. That is why we are here. Evan nodded. Then we have to make it count. For them, for the future, and so, under the endless stars, a man, an android, and a living ship traveled together, reviving the scattered remnants of human effort, restoring hope where silence had reigned, and discovering that even the smallest act of care could echo across galaxies. For Evan, the journey was no longer about mechanics or machines. It was about remembering what it meant to be human, to care, to hope, and to leave a mark that would never fade. The stellar prize moved silently through the darkness of space, past glowing nebulae and clusters of distant stars. Evan Rowe sat in the captain's chair, hands resting lightly on the smooth controls. The ship's soft hum filled the cabin like a heartbeat. Beside him, K9A observed the stars with quiet attention, its single blue eye reflecting distant light. For weeks, they had traveled across the galaxy, restoring abandoned human outposts, repairing satellites, and awakening old archives. Every location they visited revealed fragments of humanity, messages from families, journals of explorers, recordings of music long forgotten. Evan felt a growing sense of pride, but also humility. He realized how small he was in the grand scale of the universe, and yet how powerful kindness could be. Captain, K9A said softly, we are approaching the outermost system. Sensors detect a strong signal, older than any we have encountered. It is significant. Evan leaned forward, eyes wide. Significant how? It is a human beacon, Astra explained, created long before the Stellar Prize existed. Its purpose was to store humanity's collective memory and hope. It waits for someone to awaken it. Evan felt a shiver run down his spine. So this is the final one? Perhaps, said K9A. This is the culmination of the legacy. As they approached the beacon, the galaxy stretched out before them in breathtaking beauty. A massive structure floated in space like a jewel, its surface shimmering with old energy lines. Lights pulsed faintly across its surface like a heartbeat waiting to be recognized. Evan took a deep breath. Let's see if we can bring it back to life. The ship hovered close to the beacon and K9A interfaced with the structure. Its fingers moved over long dormant panels, repairing circuits, realigning energy channels, and reconnecting systems. Evan assisted by controlling the Stellar Prize's auxiliary power, ensuring the beacon received energy for the first time in centuries. Slowly, lights along the beacon began to shine brighter. The hum of power filled the air like a low song. Evan watched as old satellites awoke, spinning gently, reconnecting to the beacon's main system. Screens flickered to life, displaying maps, archives, and records, remnants of humanity's history scattered across the galaxy. Systems restoring at 80%, K9A reported. Memory retrieval in progress. Evan's eyes filled with awe. This is incredible. All this history, all these lives. We're bringing it back. Yes, Astra said softly, because someone remembered. Hours passed as they carefully restored the beacon. Evan read messages left by explorers who had dreamed of reaching the stars, of discovering new worlds, and of leaving something behind for future generations. Journals told stories of courage, kindness, and hope, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. "Captain," K9A said, "the final archives are coming online. There is one remaining module. It requires your confirmation." Evan stepped closer to the control panel. The module glowed faintly, waiting. His hand hovered over the activation interface. "This is the moment," Astra said gently. "By activating it, you honor the memory of all humanity and you awaken the final beacon." Evan took a deep breath. He thought of the broken android he had found in the desert, the small workshop, the last drops of oil he had poured into its joints. He thought of every outpost he and K9A had restored, every story they had revived. He realized that the prize had never been the ship or even the beacon itself. The prize was the act of remembering, of giving without expecting anything in return. With a steady hand, he pressed the interface. A wave of light spread across the beacon. Systems hummed to life, energy flowing like rivers of glowing threads across the structure. Old satellites reconnected automatically, spreading signals across the galaxy. Messages, music, art, and knowledge surged into the Stellar Prize's network and beyond. Evan and K9A watched silently as the beacon pulsed, filling space with a soft golden glow. Somewhere far across the stars, dormant machines and AIs stirred to life. Screens on abandoned outposts flickered. Old robots and androids began to move, reconnecting with what had been lost. "Captain," K9A said, its voice soft. "Look." Evan turned his gaze to the window. Across the vast darkness of space, faint lights appeared, like tiny stars suddenly brightening. Human settlements long forgotten, machines long dormant, and systems once lost were now alive again. The galaxy seemed to pulse with renewed energy, responding to the care of one human and one android who had chosen to remember. Evan felt a warm glow in his chest. "We did it," he whispered. "We really did it." "Yes," said K9A, because someone believed that kindness mattered. The ship hummed gently as it floated above the beacon. Astra's voice echoed softly. "The Stellar Prize has fulfilled its purpose. Humanity's legacy has been restored, and it begins again, through those who act with compassion." Evan looked at the android, who now seemed more alive than ever, almost human in its expressions. "K9A! You were more than a machine. You were a guide, a friend, and a reminder." "And you," the android replied softly, "were the spark that reminded the galaxy of what humans are capable of. Not strength, not power, but care." Evan smiled, feeling a quiet pride. For years he had thought that small acts didn't matter, yet now he saw that even the smallest gesture, pouring oil into a broken machine, could awaken hope across the stars. "The prize," he said softly, "was never the ship." "No," K9A agreed. "The prize was what you gave, the choice to care." Over the next few days they continued to monitor the newly restored systems. Old colonies began to reconnect, exchanging signals and data. Machines and androids communicated, sharing knowledge once thought lost. Music played in long, empty halls. Stories from long ago were read aloud by automated voices, echoing across space like whispers of humanity's heart. Evan and K9A became the caretakers of this renewed network, guiding repairs, restoring signals, and ensuring that nothing was forgotten. Each day brought small victories, a power system restored here, a data archive recovered there, and a sense of purpose growing in both human and machine alike. At night, Evan would stand at the observation deck of the Stellar Prize, looking at the glowing galaxy. He felt a quiet wonder. He had started as a mechanic fixing a single broken android. Now he had helped awaken a legacy that spanned stars, touching lives and machines across light years. "Do you ever think they knew we would come?" Evan asked K9A quietly. "Perhaps not," said the android. "But they built the legacy knowing that one day someone with kindness in their heart would find it." Evan nodded, smiling softly. "Then we're part of something bigger, something lasting." One evening, as the Stellar Prize floated silently among the stars, a message came through the beacon, a single line of text glowing faintly. "To whoever finds this, and remember, humanity's strength was never in machines or stars. It was in kindness." Evan read it aloud. "That's perfect." "It is the truth," K9A said softly. Evan leaned back, looking at the endless expanse of stars. "We've brought it back. and it will continue long after we are gone. The android's chest light pulsed gently, mirroring the calm of the stellar prize. And humans will never truly be gone. As long as someone remembers, Evan smiled, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. He had traveled from a small desert workshop to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. He had repaired machines, restored hope, and awakened a forgotten legacy. And in the process, he had discovered something even greater: the power of compassion and the enduring spark of humanity. "Shall we continue?" Kanade asked, its blue eye glowing warmly. Evan looked at the stars, countless and bright, waiting to be explored. "Yes," he said firmly. "There's still so much to see, so much to repair, so much to remember." The stellar prize hummed to life, engines glowing softly. Together, the man, the android, and the living ship set course for new adventures, carrying the light of humanity across the galaxy. And somewhere among the stars, the legacy of human kindness shone brighter than ever. A reminder that the true prize is not power or conquest or even a starship. It is the ability to care, to hope, and to leave a mark that cannot be erased.